digwyddiad arddangos. Welcome to a show event. No, sorry, not a show event, a showcase event. We've had quite a busy day so far, and I have to say the technologies work really well, and I'm very grateful to our communications and IT support teams for enabling this to happen. We've got four showcase studies, supporting the multi-professional primary care team, routes in and out of education and training in Wales. Training in Wales is the best in the UK, discuss, and developing healthcare leaders of the future. For each of these, there'll be a presentation, and in your Q&A, if you want to type in questions, then each of the individual presentations, the exec leads will take questions. And I'm really grateful to everyone who's taking part and who's put together this. Whilst we were sitting through the AGM, it suddenly becomes visible about how much work is being done by HEIW, and the breadth and the spectrum and depth of the topics that we cover. So today, no way covers the whole lot, but just gives, I think, a really interesting opportunity for us to share with ourselves and with colleagues from other organisations what we're about. I said earlier that I believe that the important thing is that we are really good at partnership working and co-producing, and I think from these presentations you'll see that that's the basis on which all these things are done. So without further ado, I believe I'm handing over to Alex and Charlotte to kick off with the first showcase, which is supporting the multi-professional primary care team. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and I hope you have a really interesting and informative afternoon.
Thanks, Chairman, and thanks to all of our guests this afternoon as well. So this first session, is about something that's really dear to my heart. As an ex-director of primary and community services in a health board, I fully recognise the importance of developing primary care in order to give us a really robust platform for the future of the NHS in Wales. And it's been a stated intention for so long, and yet one of the reasons I feel that we aren't able to make that always a reality is because we haven't necessarily got all of the workforce plans and the education and training programmes in place in order to make sure that that is sustainable going forward. So now that I'm in this job, it gives me a real chance to get on with that and to make sure that we do change and develop and strengthen the workforce in primary care in order to achieve those really important aims, which are outlined again for us in the Healthy Wales and endorsed in the strategic programme for primary care. So primary care has been one of our key priorities since we were established as an organisation. And basically what we would like to do is, in recognition of the fact that we want to deliver more care closer to home, we want to make sure that an increasing number of people working in primary care have got the skills and capacity they need to deliver services in primary care. And to do that, we do believe that we have to use the prudent healthcare principles and really develop the multi-professional team. And that's not to say that our contractor colleagues, our GPs, our dentists, our optometrists aren't absolutely critical, but we do need to develop the team around them in order to enable them to use their skills to best effect. So in HEIW, we think that we can contribute to this in three key ways, really. One is by growing and retaining the workforce. The second way is by improving the education and training that we give our staff. And the third way is by developing and sustaining the multi-professional team. So I'm going to hand over now to Charlotte, who's going to give you a bit of a flavour of some of the things that we've been doing. Charlotte, you've only got 10 minutes, so you're going to have to pick and choose which things you talk about from the slides, because there's an awful lot in there, which is great in itself. But obviously we would like to leave some time for discussion at the end. And am I right in saying that if people want to ask a question, they should put it in the question and answer bar so that we can pick them up at the end?
If they put their questions in the question and answer box, then I'll read them out to you and Charlotte at the end so you can answer.
Thanks. So if questions occur to our guests today, then please just put them in that bar rather than wait till the end, and we can then pick them up when Shalette has finished her presentation. So Shalette, thank you very much. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. During this morning's session, you will have heard a number of our executive colleagues make reference to primary care. So quite clearly, it's a key objective within our work programme. It's underpinned by our strategic aims and aligned to the 7 themes within our workforce strategy. So translating these strategic aims into delivery involves a considerable amount of organisation and collaborative working in order to develop the new and innovative approaches for developing our primary care workforce. So as a systems leader, HIW recognises that primary care, both from the perspective of the service and the workforce, needs to expand and strengthen to support the delivery of care closer to home. So Krisha Groves is the programme manager within our workforce transformation team, and she leads the operational function of the primary care work programme. However, there are a number of people within HIW who have primary care responsibilities as part of their portfolios of work. So we adopt very much a collaborative and integrated form of working internally in order to ensure that we capture the expertise and the knowledge of others to support the primary care agenda. And our internal working group is actually chaired by our Chief Executive. So my slides are not moving. Sorry. So how are we getting on with core activities? Well, undoubtedly, education and training is the foundation for improving practice and for improving the quality of care. So there's lots of information on this slide, and I'm just going to highlight a couple of points. So Professor Phil Matthews, Director of Postgraduate GP Education, and our Pharmacy Dean, Margaret Allen, have worked to expand opportunities for training GPs and pharmacists. So we've increased the number of GP trainers and the training practices that want to become training practices. And we've also exceeded the target of recruiting GP trainees from 160 to 186. So really sort of like helping to increase that pipeline. And in terms of pharmacists, they make an important contribution within the primary care team, not just in the management of medicines, albeit that's really important, but pharmacists are extending their roles in areas such as acute minor illness, for example. So again, increasing the numbers of pharmacy trainees is increasing that pipeline for the future workforce within our primary care services. So staying with support through education, we've recently introduced something called practice-based small group learning. And this is a concept originally introduced in Canada, adopted in Scotland recently. And we're working through with clusters. And this is a resource that gives the multidisciplinary team access to a range of learning materials to support facilitated learning within the practice setting. And as much as we talk a lot about our clinicians in primary care, we mustn't forget that we have a non-clinical workforce. So we've recently developed a qualification for our administration and receptionist class. This part of the workforce is often forgotten, and yet they are the glue that enables our clinical colleagues to deliver what only they can deliver. So really pleased that we've been able to help with the development of that part of the workforce. So what did we do during COVID to support primary care? And again, I'll just highlight a number of points. So we facilitated a range of digital solutions in the form of, sorry, there's something on the screen that shouldn't be there. A range of digital solutions to enable our trainees to continue with their studies. In terms of optometry, as well as our eye care lead, Nick Sheen, worked with others to ensure that diabetic eye screening continued, But in addition, we've sponsored 29 optometrists to undertake independent prescribing in order to treat eye conditions within the community, reducing the need for people to attend hospital. So contributing at a more strategic level, there is a strategic programme for primary care, and we're a key player on one of the 6 work streams, focusing on the workforce and the organisational development agenda. So we have recently developed and piloted training in workforce planning, and that was led by Clem and Angie in our workforce planning team. So that will enable primary care in order to get to grips with that broader workforce planning need that needs to happen to sustain the workforce. I've talked about GP recruitment previously and the increase in numbers. We are working with the All Wales General Practice Forum to develop a career framework for nurses working in primary care. And we're also working on developing a compendium of practice. And that was in response to the service talking about the variation that they have in terms of job description and the inconsistencies regarding skills and competencies needed for particular roles. So this will be a good resource, making it easier for employers to better reflect and understand the differences in roles, offering greater flexibility and improvement around multidisciplinary team working. Practice managers are pivotal within the primary care team. So this is a toolkit that we are working on to help them to identify and understand their own level of development and where the gaps might be, and to provide resources or signposting to help to develop those roles and to help those persons in turn to address some of the organisational development issues or the businesses within the business within the practice. These roles are pivotal around management and leadership within primary care. And then finally on this slide, the issue of the estates. There's no doubt that premises will either need to be expanded, maybe newly built or adapted in order to accommodate, for example, greater numbers of trainees. All very good, but we want to make sure that we are giving the evidence and the expert advice around what the physical impact of the estate to accommodate the changes needed to accommodate the changing workforce of primary care. So finally, whilst we've been doing an awful lot of work, we've also got an eye on the future. So we have training academies and hubs in some parts of Wales. So what we are proposing is to expand and to develop these in a more standardised and consistent way in order to offer a real opportunity to enable practice-based development and delivery of education and training for the wider primary care team, both at a postgraduate, undergraduate and a postgraduate stages of a professional career. So we are progressing our thinking. We're working very closely with colleagues to take this work forward. We have an event planned for the 12th of October in order to have that wide-ranging conversation with stakeholders relating to this significant strategic initiative, which will further support primary care going forward. I hope I didn't go over 10 minutes.
No, Shalette, that was fantastic because it still leaves us with 15 minutes for discussion. And just to also obviously emphasise, we've got sort of people from our partner organisations and staff externally who can pose questions, but also obviously people from the board and other staff who are helping us present today. You know, please feel free to ask any questions or raise any issues really. So yes, Sanj has put a question in there to remind us, Shalette, to talk about the 21st of October events that we're holding. So do you want to publicise and promote those a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah, we've sent a flyer out to a wide range of stakeholders. So hopefully people have had sufficient time in order to have the date in their calendar. We plan to run it in a workshop style, mindful that everybody's very busy, particularly at this time in all of our lives. So we're scheduling it as a full day, but it will be a morning session, 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, but not for the whole group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So so Steve Riley's asked a question about the 21st of October event. So we'll get some information to you, Steve. We'll get that to you after the event, because it'd be great to have your input to that, because I think there are obviously potential benefits in us working together around medical students and their placements too. And we've also got another question from Di Samuel, and Push, I might come to you to help answer this one. Would the aim be to locate the training hubs in areas that currently find it challenging to recruit and retain full-time GPs? That's a really good question.
Yeah, so the answer is we're going to have training hubs across the whole of Wales, and the intention is exactly to address the things that Di is talking about. So yeah, I think that the spread of the training hubs is going to be it'll be quite varied, but I think there are some areas that issues in recruitment. The other thing that to point out is that training practices in general practice have been increased to address the increased requirements for training in primary care. So not just for the increased number of GPs, but the other needs from the other primary care professions. And we've now got a good spread of training practices that we think is pretty even across the whole of Wales. So that also will help with the recruitment of GPs and other primary care professionals in the future.
Yeah, and Push, Steve's also asking us to mention the Bangor and Aberystwyth collaboration as well, as part of our approach to primary care. So
yeah, that's true. We are linking with Bangor and Aberystwyth both from a medical student involvement and sending medical students into those areas to start there, so that they have training in those areas that there are short of doctors generally, but particularly in primary care. So very, very happy to support that and comment on it.
Thanks, Push. Okay, I'm keeping an eye on the questions.
Sorry.
We've got a question here about the multi-professional workforce and the need to consider investing in occupational therapists to support GPs where recruitment is difficult. And clearly this is really important in the new primary care model, where we are trying to make sure that we maximise the benefit and unique contribution of all the different professions that work in that setting, and increasingly enable these professionals to have the skills to work in those settings. So Angela, do you want to say something about our investment in occupational therapists? And I think Shalette also, we are doing some specific work, aren't we, around advanced practice for occupational therapy. I'll come to Angela first.
Yeah, so thank you, Alex. I think the importance of the role of all the allied health professionals in primary care needs to be highlighted at this point. And whilst often it is easy to focus on the medical component of the workforce, what we're trying to achieve through the development of the primary care academies and the training hubs is the fact that we have an interprofessional workforce that together delivers on the health needs for the people of Wales. So looking at advanced nursing skills, so moving people from, say, practice nursing to nurse practitioner, looking at the role of physiotherapy in primary care, the role of occupational therapy in primary care, and other roles, so that together you have a holistic approach to meeting the needs of people whilst they are requiring our interventions out of hospital. who was it that was coming in after me? I do forget.
I was going to ask Colette to just comment on the occupational therapy advanced practice work that we've been doing.
Alex, I'm sorry, I don't have the details of that. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so this is a piece of work that we're doing across the UK, particularly looking at the development of credentials for advanced practice in occupational therapy in a primary care setting. So that is something which we're just at the start of doing at the moment, but we're working with the Royal College there and also HEE to do that. So again, not just looking at occupational therapy, but just trying to look at how we develop advanced practice as well to take particular account of the primary care setting.
I think occupational therapy is also important to mention in light of the different ways in which we are delivering some of the practice-based learning for students in training for occupational therapy, that also prepares them well for their work in doing remote consultations in the current environment, which many general practitioners are having to live with at the moment. So as those around the table may well be aware, the work of occupational therapy during COVID has changed significantly to delivering much of it through remote consultation, and this is another area of work that HEIW is actively involved in at the moment.
Absolutely. And I think the development of training hubs will really help bring together a lot of that expertise, and with the support of digital and remote working will really provide lots of different benefits, not just in terms of local coordination and development of things like clinical placements, but also I think a focus to develop workforce planning and other types of workforce development and workforce modernisation initiatives locally, and hopefully give staff already working in primary care the opportunity to get more involved in teaching and training as well, because I think we hear quite often about the need to develop more portfolio options to give people more variety and more flexibility about how they want to work in the future. So lots of different benefits around that. So there's no further questions coming through on the chat bar. So I'm going to ask Push, he's got his hand up. Did you want to come in and make a comment or ask a question?
All I was going to say is that, yeah, I'd like to just make an additional comment about occupational therapies of primary care professionals that cross over into our nursing homes is really, really important, and the role of occupational therapists in that function, I think, is crucial, because there's so much input to provide for more self-care or more independence for individuals who are in nursing home, whatever their condition. That's a real need to keep people you know, as independent as possible within those confines, particularly in our residential homes as well. So I just thought it's important to mention that there is an importance to it, and in getting the experience of occupational therapy into the primary care setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the other point, is that in looking at this work, obviously primary care is a critical part of the wider community care, and there are lots of other pieces of work that we're doing to support the wider community and in particular care homes as well. So I think it is really important that we focus a lot of our attention as a new organisation on really building the foundations for a more robust approach to workforce in the future. So the chairman wants to come in now. Would you like to?
Sorry about that. Just looking at the future, as a result of COVID, we've seen a shift into using telephone and video consultation. I think there's a lot of learning to be shared from primary care to secondary care colleagues. And I think that in particular, we might see great changes in the way that outpatients, for instance, might work. So I think it'd be really good to consolidate what we've learned about what training is necessary in primary care settings and see what is translatable into secondary care in terms of this agenda. And of course, with Phone First emerging, the ability to triage and to accurately help the patient and the client across health and social care will be even more important. So I think there's a lot of work to be done on simple technologies like the telephone and video conferencing.
Thanks, Chairman. That's absolutely right. I think, especially over the last 6 months, I think we'll have seen an awful lot of progress in that. One of the things that we also need to do as an organisation that, again, Gillette is involved in is looking at how we provide better education and training for people in using those clinically facing technologies, because it is a different approach to providing patient care than if you're in the same room, and people have really stepped up to use that technology over the last 6 months, but we are aware that perhaps we haven't got clear standards and clear quality around what those competences are and how to do it, how people can know that they're doing it effectively and using best practice. So that's something else that we're working on at the moment, Gillette, aren't we, with our Welsh Ambulance Service colleagues in particular. It's got applicability, I think, to lots of different professional groups and settings. And another comment from Steve Riley from Cardiff Medical School there about making sure that we do build on an ability to do the simple observations like blood pressure and urine dipsticks, and that the wearable tech will help, but we are a long way back. So yeah, but we've got to keep our eye on the ball from that perspective and make sure that the workforce of the future is going to be able to utilise that to full effect for the best needs of the patient. So we're getting close to the end of our time. Gillette, I'm not sure if you mentioned our primary care bulletin in what you said. So I'm kind of holding it up, but my green screen's not allowing me to show it very well. But on our website, you'll find our primary care workforce bulletin, which we just issued in the last couple of weeks, which pulls together an awful lot of the things that Gillette didn't have a chance to talk about in the slide today, and really gives you a lot of information about what we're doing, but also put some names and faces in there for some of the people who are leading on these programmes, so that if you want to get more information or get more involved in those things, you're very welcome to get in touch with them. And if we've got the ability going forward, we'd like to repeat that again, but if you've got any feedback on that, that would be great. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here because another question has just come in, so I'm just going to have a look. Di Samuel has said, yeah, absolutely. So it would be good to see, great to see joint training hubs in the same way as radiology have developed an academy for trainees to attend and develop these non-face-to-face skills and possibly even hold joint clinics as part of this training. Absolutely. There's lots of synergies here, I think, between the simulation facilities that we're also trying to develop in HCIW, things like the Imaging Academy and that remote clinical assessment. So absolutely, there's lots of shared objectives there. Yeah, and absolutely, it's got the potential to not just deal with GPs, but secondary care trainees, but also other professions as well. So yeah, thank you very much. So I think I know what it's like now to be a radio DJ, when they're trying to multitask with the records and the news and the questions and the tweets. I'm not very good at it. I'm really sorry about that, but my first time. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand over now to the next session, but hopefully that's given you a flavour of what we're doing around primary care. Really important priority. Can't stress that enough. And hopefully we look forward to even more progress now going forward. So thank you very much.